Shanvanti is to hear, Gayanti is to glorify, and Grananti is to accept. How it is to be accepted, this process is abhikshnasa, continuously, without intervals or interruptions. So she says, by practicing this, bhava pravaha upramam padam bhujam. One can very easily achieve and see your lotus feet, which will stop the repetition of birth and death. Going further, next verse, 37th verse. Api adhyanastvam swa kriteta prabhu jihasasi switsuhrido anujivina yesham na cha anyad bhavata padambuja parayanam rajashu yujotam yujotam samaham. O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. You are now leaving us today. So this is the time when Krishna is ready to leave, to depart from Hastinapur after the battle has been over and Maharaja Yudhishthir has been incarnated. So he is returning to Dwarka. So she is feeling very, very insecure. She is saying that you are leaving us today, although we are completely dependent on your mercy. Parayanam Rajashu Yojitam Saha. Why? Because all the other kings are at enmity with us, and we do not have any other shelter than your shelter. Anyat bhavata padam bhujat. We do not have anyone else to depend. We are completely dependent on your mercy, and who else can protect us? So in this way, she is making a request to Krishna not to leave, not to give up their association and go towards Dwarka. The Pandavas are most fortunate because with all good luck, they were entirely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on Him. The material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything. As the living entity reduces its dependence on Krishna, the more the illusion and the enforcement of Maya becomes prominent in his life. Prabhupada is saying the material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything, in particular becoming independent of the Supreme Lord. But the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. Prabhupada's exceptional definition. So what is material advancement? The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt of becoming independent of the laws of nature. Beginning from Ravan, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planet of heaven, down to the people of the present age. They are trying to overcome the laws of nature. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronical mechanical power. But the highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. So Krishna recommends that many times, several times in Bhagavad Gita, that what should be the approach, how one has to work. what should be the mind frame? Anyone remembers the verse? Particularly in context to what we are discussing now, this verse, the prayer of Kunti Devi. In the 18th chapter, Krishna says, Sarva Karmani Api Sudha Kurvanu Mad Vapashriya. That in all your activities, in all your endeavors, in all your initiatives, Sarva Karmani Api Sada, always just depend upon me. Kurvanu Mad Vapashriya. You can share that verse, Manoram Prabhu. I think it is 1856. So always try to depend. To the extent we are dependent on Krishna, to that extent there is protection. See, this is Kunti Devi's wisdom, intelligence. She does not want to let go the protection of Krishna. Why? Because saying that we are completely dependent on you, my Lord, on your mercy. To the extent we have dependence on Krishna, with the dependence comes the protection. And she is now fearful that if the dependence on Krishna is not there, Sarva Karmani Api Sada Kurvanu Mad Vyapashraya. And then Krishna says, Mad Prasadat Avapnoti Shashvatam Padam Avya. So if you act in such a way, if you perform activities remaining under Krishna's dependence, then one will reach the eternal and imperishable level. This is Mad Vyapashraya. Prabhupada is saying it is by mercy. So Sarv Karmani, you can show both the translation and the word meaning. Come down. So Karmani is all activities, although engage in all kind of activities. And Sada, always. And how one has to perform the action? Performing Mat Vyapashraya. Ashraya means under my protection. So under guidance of Krishna or dependence on Krishna. So to the extent it is under guidance and dependence of Krishna or his representative, to that extent we are invoking the protection of the Supreme Lord. So Krishna is saying, my pure devotee under my protection. And when works in such consciousness, then he receives Krishna's prasad, mat prasada, avapne. And what is the result of that prasad? Shashvatam padam avyaya. He reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. Show the purport. What purport? Prabhupada says, the word Mad Vyapashraya means under the protection of the Supreme Lord. To be free from material contamination, a pure devotee acts under the direction of the Supreme Lord or his representative, the spiritual master. Very clearly, to the extent one is under the direction, is under the guidance, to the extent one is completely dependent, to that extent he is having the protection. There is no time limit for a pure devotee. Always 24 hours a day, 100% engaged in activities under the direction of the Supreme. The service is always to be done under direction. To a devotee who is just engaged in Krishna consciousness, the Lord is very, very kind. In spite of all difficulties, he is eventually placed in the transcendental abode of Krishna. He is guaranteed entrance there. There is no doubt about it. In that supreme abode, there is no change. Everything is eternal, imperishable, and full of knowledge. So Kunti Devi is, as I said yesterday, you can close this share. That Kunti Devi has really realized the Bhagavad Gita. Whatever Krishna has spoken to Arjuna, she has not only realized, but she has immediately applied. So what she is saying, that we don't want to remain without shelter. We don't want to act independent. We don't want to act whimsical. What is important? That we remain under your protection. We remain under your guidance, under your dependence. So if you leave us, and if you return to Dwarika, then how will we receive the shelter? How will we protect it? There are so many dangers at every step. Is another realization of Brahmaji. That padam padam yad vipadam na tesha. So she is saying that if you leave us, so there is so much threat, there is so much danger at every step. So who will protect us? So in this way, she is asking for Krishna to remain in Hastinapur and continue giving the protection to the Pandavas. Prabhupada said the highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor, but at the same time depend completely on the Lord. So the principle is to the extent one is dependent, to that extent one will receive protection. And to the extent one is independent, to that extent there is no possibility of any protection. Then it does not qualify for protection. The Pandavas were the ideal executors of this standard of civilization. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the goodwill of Lord Shri Krishna. But they were not idle parasites of the Lord. Prabhupada is using strong words. They were not idle parasites of the Lord. They were all highly qualified, both by personal character and by physical activities. Still, they always looked for the mercy of the Lord because they knew that every living being is dependent by constitutional position. The perfection of life is therefore to become dependent on the will of the Lord instead of becoming falsely independent in the material world. So this Kunti Devi is fully convinced. Those who try to become falsely independent of the Lord are called anath or without any guardian. Whereas those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called sanath or those who have someone to protect them. Therefore, we must try to be sanath so that we can always be protected from the unfavorable conditions of material existence. By the deluding power of external material nature, we forget that the material condition of life is the most undesirable perplexity. In Bhagavad Gita 7:19, therefore, directs us that after many, many births, a fortunate person becomes aware of the fact that Vasudeva is all in all. And that the best way of leading one's life is to surrender unto him completely. This is the sign of a Mahatma. All the members of the Pandav family were Mahatmas in household life. Maharaj Yudhishthira was the head of these Mahatmas and Kunti Devi was the mother. The lesson of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavad Purana, are therefore inevitably connected with the history of the Pandavas. Mahatmas. For them, separation from the Lord was just like the separation of a fish from water. Srimati Kunti Devi therefore felt such a separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole pair of queen is to try to persuade the Lord to stay with them. After the battle of Kurukshetra, although the inimical kings were killed, their sons and grandsons were still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who are put into the condition of enmity, but all of us are always in such a condition. Prabhupada gives this enlightenment that all of us are always in such a condition. What condition? Like the Pandavas were in the condition of enmity. And the best way of living is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord and thereby overcome all difficulties of material existence. Kevayam naam rupabhyam yadubi saha pandava भवतो अदर्शनम यर्हि ऋषिकानाम इवाशितु. She is giving an example that as the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadu, will end at once. So, how deep is the dependence of Kunti Devi is expressed in this verse. That she says that you are our life and soul. As the soul leaves the body becomes dead. So she is saying here that similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame, glory, name, everything, all activities will end at once. Kunti Devi is quite aware that the existence of the Pandavas is due to Sri Krishna only. The Pandavas are undoubtedly well established in name and fame and are guided by the great King Yudhishthira, who is morality personified. And the Yadus are undoubtedly great allies. But with the guidance of Lord Krishna, all of them are non-entities, as much as the senses of the body are useless without the guidance of consciousness. No one should be proud of his prestige, power, and fame without being guided by the favor of the Supreme Lord. The living entities are always dependent, and the ultimate desirable object of the is the Lord Himself. We may therefore invent by our advancement of material knowledge all sorts of counteracting material resources. But without being guided by the Lord, all such inventions end in fiasco. However strong and stout the reactionary element may be. Want to discuss or want to proceed? Bolo.
प्रभु जी फियास्को क्या है इसका मतलब?
फियास्को का मतलब है कि अपना खुद ही नाश कर लेना. एग्जैक्ट मीनिंग हिंदी में क्या है फियास्को का? फियास्को का मतलब बहुत बड़ा ब्लंडर या बेवकूफी पना. हाँ. एंड हिंदी में क्या दिया फियास्को? फेलियर है, which is a humiliating failure, a disaster, not a natural disaster, but a self-inflicted disaster because of one's own foolishness and which causes embarrassment. Okay. Yes, there should go.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in the previous verse, 37, there is one line here, I will just read, Prabhuji, that.
There is one line.
Yes. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with Lord, but at the same time depend completely on the Lord.
What is valor? Valor is with courage, with bravery. The Pandavas were full of valor and vitality, but they were always dependent on Krishna. उनके पास पुरुषार्थ था, उनके पास क्षमता थी, काबिलियत थी, लेकिन तब भी वो क्या थे, वो भगवान पे पूरी तरह आश्रित थे। अभी तो क्या है, अभी क्या जरूरत है द्वारकाधीश की, कृष्ण की? अभी तो महाराज युधिष्ठिर इज द क्राउन किंग, अनडिस्प्यूटेड क्राउन किंग of the whole world. Everybody has to bow down to him. He has been crowned the king, undisputed king. And with him there is the mighty Bhim and the best archer Arjuna with Nakul and Sahadev. But see, Kunti Devi, he's saying, no, no, we are very insecure. Who will protect us? Without you, who will protect us? There is so many other envious people who are waiting for this opportunity. So she is feeling this separation also, and she is feeling the insecurity also. So she is requesting Krishna. So the perfection is to depend, not remain independent. What is the conditional life teaching us? Conditional life teaches us that one should not depend on anyone else. Children, as they grow up, they want to be independent. Wife wants to be independent of the financial support from the husband. Why? So that she can do whatever she likes. Why this independence is being sought after? So that they may do whatever they like. There is no one to restrain them, restrict them, or inquire from there, ask them what to speak of, correcting them or punishing them. So she is pouring her heart, that if you leave in your absence, who will protect us? She is the mother of the most powerful persons on earth, but she is completely dependent on Krishna. And not only she is dependent, she thinks all her sons are also dependent. So this is Prabhupada is putting the perfection of life when one is fully dependent on Krishna. What it means to be dependent on Krishna, this is even more deeper. What is your understanding? What it means to depend on Krishna?
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, actually, the Lord is the supreme and He is the supreme controller. That Kunti Devi has realized because He is the supreme. Everything is governed by Him only. Ispara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadirani Govinda Sarva Karanam Karanam. So she has realized that ultimately everything depends upon Lord only. Though she has the son, they are very much powerful, but
Everything depends on the Lord. Every living entity has the, opportunity to perform his or her karma. The Lord
the
doesn't
supreme
interfere.
that supreme cause is Lord only.
You answer proper what it means to be dependent on Krishna. I don't know where you are going around about. What it means to depend on Krishna.
Doing our best, whatever has been instructed to us, and leaving the result to Him.
That is dependence. Doing our best according to our own capacity, according to our own likes, dislikes. Think simple, think basic. What it means to depend on Krishna. Like your daughter. Are you hearing?
Yes, Prabhu.
She is dependent on her mother. Unless and until the mother feeds, can she eat? Can she get anything? This is one example of dependence. Now, what it means to be dependent while working or while acting or performing actions. Ravindra Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, executing the actions what we have told.
Come again. What did you say?
Prabhuji, executing the instructions what we have told to do.
Yeah. And then depending on the mercy. Not thinking that I have the skill or I have the will or I have the ability that I will be able to perform. Depending on mercy. Like Srila Prabhupada, you see the example? When Prabhupada was preaching, always he used to cite that it is my spiritual master's instruction. And he is depending on it. So many times Prabhupada says, you will pick up the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. In the preface, Prabhupada says that people are accepting this movement of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada says, there is no reason for credit towards me, because this movement was started on the instruction of my spiritual master. And then he gives whole credit of this movement to Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur. This is what it means to depend on Krishna or to depend on his representative or the spiritual master. That we are being used just as instrument. We are being just used as instrument. It is up to you how to use and utilize. I have nothing of my own. There is no personal agenda. This basic thing is not clear. If we have something else, or if we do something else, then it is not dependence. Then there is this sign of independence, which is very dangerous. Okay, should I take one more verse? I'll take one more verse. Because not much discussion is happening. If discussion is not happening, it will not enter into understanding. It will remain where it is. In the screen or on the book. Nayam sobhishyate tatra yadhaedinam gadadhara tuvatpade rankita bhati swalakshina vilakshite. O Gadadhar Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impression of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful. But when you leave, it will no longer be so. He says that our kingdom has become, it appears to be very big, very great, very grand, very beautiful. Why? Because it is marked Svat Pader Ankita Bhav. Your footprints, your footmarks are there in this kingdom. And because of it, it is appearing to be very beautiful or very grand or very great. But if you leave, then there will no longer be those footprints or footmarks. Then it will lose all its grandeur and glory. So Prabhupada talks about the marks on the feet of the Lord. There are certain particular marks on the feet of the Lord which distinguishes the Lord from others. The marks of the flag, thunderbolt, instrument for driving an elephant, Ankush, it is called Ankush, umbrella, lotus disc, etc. are on the bottom of Lord's feet. It is both different. Left is different and right is different. There are various marks. These marks are impressed upon the soft dust of the land and where the Lord traverses. The land of Hastinapur was thus marked while Lord Shri Krishna was there with the Pandavas. And the kingdom of the Pandavas thus flourished by such auspicious signs. Kunti Devi pointed out that these distinguishing features and was afraid of ill luck in the absence of good luck. Okay, I'll stop here. If there is anything to discuss or anything to ask, please go ahead. Yes, Manoram, bro.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, what is the difference between Mahatma and Mahajan?
Mahatma and Mahajan. Actually, Mahajans are 12. Srimad Bhagavatam lists 12 Mahajans who are authorized representative of the Lord. Swayambhu, Narada, Shambhu, Kumaro, Kapilo, Manu. This verse is there. When the Vishnu Dutas and the Yamadutas, they met on the departure of Ajamil. So Vishnu Dutas claimed that Ajamil cannot be carried by the Yamadutas. And Yamadutas was shocked. He said, he's such a sinful person. If we do not have claim, then who else? And they were defeated by the Vishnu Dutas, both in the argument and by their presence. And they took Ajamil. Ajamil actually did not go, but confrontation, the Yamadutas were defeated and they went for the first time ever, they were defeated. They had no such experience. So they were shell shocked and they went to Yamaraj, Dharmaraj, and inquired from him, so what is Dharma? First question they asked, what is Dharma? Because they thought this is Adharma which is happening. A sinful person who has committed such offenses, such sins, is being asked not to be touched by the Yamadutas. So what is the answer? What is Dharma? Yesterday also, day before yesterday, I discussed. Yes, there shall go.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dharmantu Sakshat Bhagavad Pranita Prabhuji.
Dharmam tu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranita. That the principles of religion are established by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. It cannot be by anyone else. And it is very, very mystical, very serious, very confidential. It cannot be decoded by anyone. But there are 12 Mahajans who have been authorized by the Lord. So one who follows the footsteps of these Mahajana, Mahajana yena gatha sapanta, they can come to the conclusion of understanding of what is Dharma. This established Supreme Lord. Okay, so these are all Mahajanas. There are 12 of them. Swayambhu is Brahma, Narada, Shambhu is Lord Shiva, Kumaros, all the 4 Kumara, Kapila, Kapil Dev is son of Devavati, and all the Manus. Then there is Janaka, Bhishma, Maharaj Bali, then Prahlada. How many? Verse is there. So these are all Mahajanas. So this Dharma, this Tattva of Dharma is revealed into the heart of these personalities, even Bhishma Dev. So one who follows this Mahajanas, so they can understand what is Dharma, or they can apply them. Okay, so this is one part which Srimad Bhagavatam glorifies the position of Mahajanas. You show the verse. Swayambhu Narada Shambhu, I'll tell you the verse. Kumaro Kapilo Muni. And he says in that verse, No one else knows the Mahima. Only these personalities know. Six 320. स्वयंभू नारदा शंभु कुमारो कपिलो मुनु प्रहलादो जनको भीष्मा बलि वैया सकीर वया. See, then he says that द्वादशेस्ते विजानीमो धर्मम भागवतम बता गुह्यम विशुद्धम दुर्बोधम यद ज्ञात्वा अमृतम अश्नुते. Come down. Come down. Translation. Read. You read. There should Balaram.
Translation by His Divine Grace. Lord Brahma, Bhagwan Narad, Lord Shiva, the four Kumaras, Lord Kapila, the son of Devavati, Swayambhuva Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, Grandfather Bhishma, Boli Maharaj, Sukadev Goswami, and I myself know
I
that-
myself. Who is I myself? Yamraj or Dharmaraj. Go ahead.
Myself know the real religious principle. My dear friends, this transcendental religious principle, which is known as Bhagavad Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him, is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by
It is very
chance,
difficult. Please wait. Very difficult and confidential for ordinary beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands it, how? When he follows into the footsteps of these Mahajana. Mahajana ye nikatha to panta. He is immediately liberated and thus returns home back to Godhead. It is said that Amritam Ashnute. It is Durbodham. It is very, very difficult to understand. But Yad Gyatva, when one accepts it, when one receives it, Amritam Ashrute. So the next verse also. Next verse. This is a very popular verse. Etavan ev loke asmin pumsa dharma parasmita bhakti yoga bhagavati tannam grahanavati. And how this Bhagavad Dharma begins? Devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. Okay. So these 12 are nominated. They are called the Mahajanas. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna glorifies his pure devotee as Mahatma. Who he says as Mahatma? Who is Mahatma? What is the definition?
a person who follows Mahatma, he told Guruji.
That is the you have spoken something, but does not give the proper comprehension. Who is the Mahatma? There's a verse for that. Yes, Dayashi.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Mahatmanastu mam partha devim prakriti masrita.
Mahatma is that who is under the protection of my divine energy. Mahatmanastu mam partha devim prakriti mas. One who has taken the shelter. This is what Kunti Devi is saying. I don't want to lose that shelter. I don't want to lose that protection. How? I don't want to lose the dependence. How the shelter and protection is to the extent dependences. She says that we don't want to become independent now. That you leave and we decide and do whatever we like. And whatever we feel is good for us. So she is not wanting to go in that situation. So Mahatma is one who is under the divine shelter and protection of the Lord. And also Krishna explains, Vasudevam Sarvamiti Samahatma Sukhim. One who has understood that Krishna is the cause of all things. One who has realized. Kunti Devi has realized that. So in a way, Kunti Devi is representing both. She is Mahatma also and she is Mahadeva also. Okay. Correct. We'll stop here. This 15. I am not going fast so that you get the opportunity to memorize. Later you cannot say that Prabhuji एक दिन में 5 श्लोक की ये कहाँ से करता है या कहाँ से करती. I am just giving you two verses so that you can make an attempt and the mind cannot trick you or fool you. You have to be determined. If you remain determined, there is all success. You have written, Dayashil? Where are you now?
Yes, Prabhuji. I am there,
Huh?
Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. I returned, Prabhuji.
You return. Hare Krishna. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, पिता गौतम गोविंद देव।